Good morning, everybody, and a very warm welcome to our latest webinar, Smart Buildings, where we'll explain to you today how to run your workplaces and buildings more economically, efficiently, and environmentally sustainably. Next slide, please, Joe. So my name is John O'Brien. I'm the founder and MD of LCMB, and I'm delighted to be joined today by my colleagues Paul, Costin, and Rudy. And we're hoping to have Mark Venner from Karsh with us in the webinar this morning. Although we're having, I think, some technical problems at the moment, but hopefully Mark will be able to join us and be moved to being in presenter mode. So today, what we're going to do is we're going to identify why your buildings cost more than they should to operate, and how our smart building packages, our building evaluation and MOT, our indoor assessment, and our green buildings credential packages will help you to make your buildings more cost efficient, more productive, and improve the return on investment. So I'm just going to ask my colleagues to switch on their cameras and to introduce themselves, and I'll ask Joe and Rudy to see if we can support Mark to get online. So Rudy, if you could do a quick intro and then pass to Paul and Costin, please.
Morning, everyone. It's good to see a few familiar names on the list of attendees. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Rudy Duplessis. I'm the Director of Operations here at LCMB. I look after facilities management and project management for the most part. And today I'm going to be talking about our smart building MOT. I'll hand over to Paul.
Before somebody says you're on mute. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining. So my name is Paul Ballinger. I'm Commercial Director for LCMB, and I work closely with the Net Zero Carbon team, which segues nicely into Costin.
Thanks, Paul. Good morning, all. My name's Costin Banos, and I'm the Senior Consultant in the Net Zero team, and I'll be speaking to you today a little bit about our smart building package for green buildings.
Okay, thank you very much, Costin. So I'm going to ask Rudy and Joe if we can help Mark to overcome the technical challenges of Teams and to get him online so that he can join us, because we'll be speaking to Mark later in the webinar and discussing how our team have supported him to reduce his energy costs and energy use by over 70% over the last couple of years. So next slide, please, Joe. So typically, we see the following problems with our clients, the challenges that they have to make their buildings, workplaces and estates work as effectively as they can. Over the last couple of years, we've seen an increasing energy use and costs within buildings and associated infrastructure. And equally, we've seen increasing resource use and costs driven up by inflation. The utilisation of space has become much more challenging for organisations now that we're moving into a hybrid world. So the challenge is how to use your space both effectively and to utilise it when people are in the office. How you can actually create environments that work most effectively for your people and teams. In addition, as organisations commit to a net zero carbon target, be it 2050, which is the legally binding commitment in the UK, or an earlier date chosen by your organisation, one of the challenges is decarbonising buildings and associated infrastructure. And decarbonising buildings will deliver approximately a 30% reduction on carbon footprints. Scope 1 and 2, which is the sort of energy and resources used in buildings, is typically 30% of your carbon baselines, with the other 60 to 70% being scope 3. And equally, there's now a compelling body of evidence published by British Council for Offices, Harvard University and others that demonstrates the impact of indoor environmental quality as well as workspaces and buildings to your employees' productivity, performance and well-being. So typically we can see up to 20-30% reduction in effectiveness and performance for poor circumstances. And over the course of a year, buildings which are optimized for employee productivity and performance will deliver a 3% productivity improvement across the entire workforce. Next slide, please, Joe. So what do we mean by smart buildings? So for us, a smart building is a building that allows your people to operate at their best in terms of their sort of performance and productivity, and for which the cost, be it sort of energy, carbon, resource, or pounds, is minimized to deliver those conditions. So this means a building which works for the people, where the workspaces and the systems work for the users rather than the users having to work around the systems, where the indoor environment and the workspace that's presented to your team allows them to operate at their peak in terms of productivity and supports their well-being. A building which is optimized to minimize the operational costs in terms of the hard and soft FM, as well as the other operational costs in running your real estate. A building where you are utilizing less energy and the carbon emissions from the building support your route to net zero carbon and your sustainability commitments. Equally, it avoids your buildings becoming carbon stranded so that you're unable to utilize them or rent them as policy and legislation changes in the UK, such as the MEES regulations. Buildings which are future-proof from the organisational point of view, so they allow you to deliver what you need to do strategically, either for your people or for the operations or for what you are delivering in the building, be it an office building, a healthcare facility, a research facility, or an educational facility. It's about ensuring that the outcomes that you deliver in the building are optimised, allowing you to improve the return on investment of your building. And equally, a building which can flex for the users, so you have the ability to adapt it and change as building user change, strategic need of the business changes, or you have to accommodate future legislation and policy changes. The most likely area for future legislation and policy changes will be the area of energy and carbon. Next slide, please, Joe. So at LCMB, we've created 3 smart buildings package to help you reduce your operating costs, improve your workplace performance, and reduce your energy use, your resource use, and your carbon emissions. These packages can be used individually or combined to actually make an impact for your organization and reduce the return on investment. So we have our building evaluation and MOT, we have our indoor environment assessment, and we have our green buildings credential package. And I'm now going to pass to Rudy, our Director of Operations, who will describe the first package, our building evaluation and MOT. So over to you, Rudy.
Thanks, John. Morning again, everyone. So this building evaluation and MOT, I really like the analogy of the MOT part of this. So if you imagine you've got a car that you're about to sell and you're about to put it through the test, what you don't want to do is fill it up with fuel and buy new tires exactly the moment before you sell it. So this is what the building evaluation MOT is based on. What our team will do is we will look at the fabric of the building, the infrastructure, the energy coming in, any issues like air leakage, plant operating, all of those sorts of things, and make sure that they are running as they should, so that you're not putting, to borrow the same analogy again, more fuel in than you need, and you're also not losing things out the back end, heating the atmosphere, for example. So that's the one element of it. The second element of it is to look at the way things are operating. So particularly around the facilities management area, if you've got a complex estate, it's likely that you've got some complex facilities contracts to go with them, and these evolve and change over time. And as John mentioned earlier, sometimes regulations change and they change to your benefit. but it's not necessarily in the service provider's interest to advise you of this change and reduce their service. So we look for those opportunities, and at the end of this, what you get is you get a simple report which tells you how well you're doing, so identifies any clear areas of leakage, give you some ideas into where you can improve further, and also just make some general recommendations in terms of meeting current best practice and operating your estate to the best it can possibly be. So this package would take about 12 weeks to complete. It's high level, so most of it is done as a desktop exercise, and the prices are on screen there. The audit itself, if you pay as a one-off, is about $3,950, or if you want to spread the cost over 12 monthly payments, we can do the same at £350 per month. There will be an opportunity at the end if you have any questions. That's me for now. I'll hand over to Paul.
Thanks. Good morning, everybody. Hope you're well. So indoor environment assessment, it's always looked upon, I think, as, oh, this is the soft one. What we've done is listen to clients, and the three questions they keep asking is, what do I do? How do I get started? How much is it going to cost me, and how do I measure it? And this package and all the three packages are positioned entirely to do that. So we've given you clarity based on customer questions. Indoor environment assessment is based around a measurement of key factors. Typically, we're measuring temperature, humidity, carbon dioxide, virus, organic compound, and even radon if you're in a radon area in the UK. So we collect the data based on a few sensors. The sensors work over 5G, so we don't have to interrupt any LAN or WAN infrastructure you may have in the building. The data is then presented back on a dashboard that we analyze with you side by side, and we look at the potential outcomes and interventions that you may need to do. Three main benefits for businesses. One is health. So having the data can help you avoid potential health risks and sick days, and you're being able to identify circumstances that could cause respiratory issues, sometimes headaches and fatigues. The second one is about productivity. John mentioned it earlier. Clean air, without a doubt, allows you to perform at your best cognitive value, and genuinely get the most out of your teams, which is probably your second biggest, most expensive asset. So why wouldn't you give them an environment to operate 100% on? Thirdly, and certainly not least in today's environment, is the energy. The measurements will provide you with a detailed data that will determine if your ventilation and filtration system, your HVAC, are operating efficiently, and adjustments can then lead to, in most cases, energy savings across the building, which those energy savings then remain consistent. So for me, in summary, it takes around 12 weeks to get a set of good data for us to feed back to you and come up with some interactions. But by prioritizing indoor air quality, businesses and building managers not only safeguard the health of their employees, but they're starting to contribute to the operating savings. And we've positioned this as an entry-level 12-week offer with a small amount of sensors to collect the appropriate data for you. I hope it's of interest. Thank you. I will pass over to Costin.
Great, thanks, Paul. So I'll be speaking briefly about our green buildings package. And this is really important for everyone due to what John mentioned earlier, which is a legislative requirement for net zero by 2050. So as I'm sure you're aware, the Climate Change Act 2008 and its Net Zero Amendment 2019 legally commit the UK to net zero emissions by 2050. And this affects everyone, private sector and public sector equally, because we all have to strive for this goal. But the other, benefit of striving for this goal is that it's going to save money. By reducing energy costs and energy consumption, you can save money on an expense that is otherwise unavoidable. We all need energy to operate our businesses. So what we offer is an energy survey where we can find where you're using unnecessary energy and help reduce the cost and reduce the expenditure on this significant area, especially as we're seeing energy prices likely to increase in the short and medium term. And this will help improve your bottom line. So what we're offering is specialist energy and carbon management consultants. We have worked in a number of key streams in the public sector with some really impressive NHS trusts. We've worked with higher education and research facilities. And in the private sector, we've worked with large office buildings and warehouses, including one where we've identified that they needed some improvements to meet the minimum energy efficiency standards, the MEES regulations, so that their EPCs can be increased up to a C by 2030. So by offering our Smart Buildings Green Credentials due diligence package of £3,000 for 12 weeks, we are offering a high-level energy and carbon review, where we'll do an assessment of current energy consuming practice, look at your emissions and costs associated with that, and then provide a series of recommendations with a guide for financial savings and energy and carbon savings. And this includes decarbonisation strategies. And then we can discuss with you how to implement these, which is where the real savings begin. But just by doing a review and monitoring and seeing what you're currently consuming already can offer savings of about 1 to 3%. And that's what we find generally. All right, on to you, John. And you're on mute.
Thank you. I had to be the first to do that, so thanks for thanks for pointing that out. So thank you, Carsten. Thank you, Rudy, and thank you, Paul. As Rudy said earlier, if you do have questions, drop them into the chat, because we'll have some time for questions after I speak to Mark. So hopefully we've got Mark online. If I could ask Mark to unmute himself and turn on his camera, or if I could ask our team to do that. Let's just see if we can get Mark up, and I can see Mark's in the webinar, but are our team able to unmute him and get his camera on?
I've enabled it, but I can't do it for him, unfortunately.
Okay. So Mark, I think you're going to have to switch your mic and camera on at your end, if you're able to do that. And okay, so while we're figuring that out, let me do a quick intro for Mark and give a little bit of background to the work that we've delivered for Mark and the Karsha group, and then hopefully we'll be able to get Mark online and live for a chat. So Mark Venner is the Chief Operating Officer at Karsha UK and Ireland, and Karsha, many of you will know from jet washers. They're a company which are known for innovative cleaning solutions, currently turning over a little over 3 billion euros across the globe. The business has a long-term focus on sustainability, both economic and environmental. And Mark has helped Karsha introduce financial growth and supply chain stability and products to their markets over the last couple of years. During his 22 years at Karsha, he's held many roles, including project managing the design and build of their UK headquarters in Banbury, not far from our offices. And his focus over the last few years has been introducing green projects into the business with a clear purpose of focusing on his group's key sustainability initiatives in emissions, recycling and social hero partnerships that benefit local and national communities. So I'm just want to see, are we able to get Mark online? Mark, are you able to join us? So if the technology, I
can see Mark is in the meeting.
Yeah.
But I can't see if his mic or camera is working or not.
Okay. So Mark, we will just have one further go to get Mark online, because our business has worked with Mark and the Karsha team over about the last 7 or 8 years, and what we've done is supported them through consultancy to deliver the ESOS requirements and associated requirements, looking at their buildings and operations. And over the last couple of years, Mark and the LCMB team have delivered a very impressive energy and carbon reduction saving of over 75% for their operations. So we'll just try one more time to get Mark online. If we're not able to get Mark online, what I'll do is move to questions, and then hopefully we'll get Mark online before we finish the webinar. If not, what we'll do is we'll record the questions we would have asked Mark on the webinar, and we'll send them out with the recording of today's webinar. So one last time, are we able to get Mark online?
No, I'm afraid Microsoft seems to have beaten me today.
Okay.
Can't see what's going on.
So apologies to Mark and apologies to our attendees, because I know Mark was very excited to join us today and share the journey that his team, Karsha, and their organisation have been on over the last couple of years. So as I said, what we'll do is we'll record a session with Mark, probably do it on Teams or on video, and we'll add it to the webinar from today. So Joe, can we move on to the next slide, please? So I'm just going to see if we have any questions. If you have questions, you can drop them into the chat. But I had a few questions come in advance of the session today, and I'm just going to pull up the questions, and then I'll share them with my colleagues. So Costin, I'm going to ask you the first question. So we've had a question which is, how difficult is it to decarbonize a building, and where should somebody start?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it's a challenge to decarbonize a building, but it's a challenge that is achievable. Obviously, that's an area that we specialize in, but the place to start is through an energy survey. So by surveying what the assets are that your building has, surveying what the operational usage is, and what the users of the building are doing, we can create, I guess, a picture of what that building is doing. And then we're able to model that building's energy performance, which then allows us to work out what recommendations are viable for a specific building. So obviously every building's different. And where I'm from in Australia, we don't use a lot of gas, but over here, gas is one of the main energy sources for heating buildings, and that's slowly being phased out. We expect it will be phased out over time as the reliance on gas decreases. So decarbonizing buildings through replacement of gas boilers with heat pumps and electric technology allows us to both decarbonize as the grid's decarbonizing and reduce Scope 1 and Scope 2 emissions in our buildings.
Okay, thank you, Costin. Have I seen a note that says Mark is now able to unmute and turn his camera on? Is that correct? Really? Did you drop me a note?
Fingers crossed.
Okay.
That's what the note says.
So can we, Mark, are you able to sort of unmute yourself and turn your camera on? Is the technology going to work for us?
Can you hear me, John? Yes.
Joe, can we go back to the previous slide, please? Mark, I can hear you. I'm not sure I can see you, but I can certainly hear you. So thank you for persisting with us this morning. As Rudy says, it looks like Microsoft attempted to see the better of us, but we seem to have overcome that. So Mark, I don't know if you were able to hear, I did a brief bio saying a little bit about your role as at Karsha and a little bit about the business. But I want to say thank you very much for being with us this morning, and thank you for persisting. So can we start by, would it be possible for you to give us a little overview of the Karsha Group, please?
Yes, first of all, you might realize that we are certainly moving away from Microsoft. We're on a Google platform, and I think that's caused some of the technical problems this morning. So I apologize to everyone. And yes, about Karcher, obviously, I've been a Karcher for many years now. It's still a family-run business. We are the world-leading cleaning solutions company. Probably known quite commonly here in the UK for our yellow pressure washers, or currently our yellow window vacs. We sold a significant number of those window vacs over the years, close to 3 million, and that's certainly grown the portfolio for us in the UK. But globally, we've got 16,000 people. We have 160 companies in 82 countries. We have about 3,000 products in our sort of portfolio, and our sort of big claim to fame there is ensuring that innovation is at the center of all of our products. And one of the KPIs that we look at there is 90% of all of those 3,000 products are less than 5 years old. So there's continuous development in all of our products and bringing new technology and new innovation to our customers. And certainly that also goes around ensuring that our products are certainly also sustainable and eco-efficient when it comes to our customers' usage.
Thank you, Mark. That's a great introduction. I know I was very impressed when I was over at your HQ in Banbury a couple of weeks back, seeing the sort of range of innovation and products and the history of the Karcher business. Are you able to say a little bit about how LCMB has helped you over the last few years with your sustainability journey and optimizing the performance of your buildings and operations?
Yes, absolutely. For us, the first thing I must say, it's crucial to have partners. I think there's never going to be an expert on sustainability within organizations and businesses, or, most businesses can't afford them at the moment. So it's crucial to build strong partnerships that can take you on your sustainability journey. And certainly one of the big projects that we have here in Banbury is we acquired a 6.5 acre site here in Banbury and started to design and plan out our headquarters for the UK. And the UK, just to set it in scene of the Karcher world, we're the third biggest entity. So it's very important to have a significant size headquarters to deal with all of the aspects that we want to promote here in the UK. Our products, we have an academy, we have a centre where we sell directly to our customers, and certainly providing an office for the 300 employees throughout the UK. It was vital. So we set on the journey. We put together just under 8,000 square metre premises here, over 3 stories. And certainly at the initially, if anybody's got experience working for a German family business, they're very, very strict on budgets and sticking to budgets. So certainly our requirements for this building was to stick within a certain budget, and that didn't allow us to have a BREEAM certification, which would be excellent or even outstanding or even very good. We wanted, we actually had to only aim for good to get the building up and running. But since then, it's been so important working with LCMB to improve the environmental credentials of our headquarters here in Banbury. And initially, it came off the ESOS regulations that we have to do as a large organization and the reporting of it. And working with LCMB, we put together an action plan as to how we can actually start to improve the credentials here at our head office. And I did make this known, and I do talk about it now. Since we moved into our new head offices in 2016, we've had a 75% reduction in our emissions by introducing programs into the building, into the operations of the facility. One was putting 963 solar panels on our roof. Then we put LED lighting into the premises, and then we also now have solar film on our windows. And certainly energy management now is crucial to us to drive down that final 25% that we have here at our headquarters in Banbury.
Mark, you've obviously been on a very, very impressive journey since opening your headquarters in Banbury. Why do you find it helpful to work in partnership with an organisation like ours? And how did we add value to that journey over the last couple of years?
We're certainly expert in the fields, so certainly large organisations like ourselves need direction, because it's when you're selling products, as we do, to the consumers and to some of the big organisations that we sell to, the likes of Amazon, B&Q, Wix, Toolstation. These companies all want you to be part of their environmental journey or their sustainability journey, and certainly we need to make that impact. We need to demonstrate that we're doing our bit to make a difference, and certainly working with experts in the field for us helps us get there quicker, and for me shows a very good outward message, not just to our B2B customers, but particularly to our consumers of our products.
So Mark, you and your team and Karsh have clearly made a very, very big difference over the last couple of years in your operations in Banbury and across the UK and Ireland. So what do you see as the next challenges for Karsh going forward?
The big challenge now is scope 3. And ensuring that we now start to work with our own suppliers to ensure that they're bringing down their emissions and their carbon footprint. And certainly we have upstream and downstream supply chain emissions, and certainly managing that and working to understand the data and how we drive that down certainly is the big challenge that we have as we try and hit some of the targets for 2030 and 2035.
Yeah, I think we're clearly seeing a similar challenge with a number of our clients and organisations. So what would you suggest, or where would you suggest, Mark, that someone starts if they're at the beginning of the sustainability and building optimization journey?
I mean, for us, it was clearly focusing on our scope 1 and 2, and certainly I believe through grow a little, invest a little, we certainly made a big impact on our scope 1 and 2 emissions over the last 5 years. It's now trying to push that last little bit, but as I say, we need to look at the bigger picture now. But certainly for me, the suggestion is energy and gas, making sure that you have a clear platform, and you can certainly have data at your fingertips to record and manage and steer your emissions down through energy and gas. Certainly for me, energy and water usage in the equipment that people use, looking at and making sure that you are purchasing and using equipment that has that opportunity to be more eco-efficient around its energy and its water usage. The third element is transport. Start thinking about transport. Certainly we have an EV strategy to 2030, and we are on a nice strong journey now, even by introducing sort of biofuels into our operations as a replacement for diesel is a first step, but it's an expensive step, and some businesses can't always do that straight away. But certainly we're growing our EV fleet as I speak, and certainly here at the head office, we have over 20 chargers already within our head offices, and now it's putting those into our other locations across the UK. And finally, the fourth element is recycle and manage waste. You can imagine we've got 50 engineer vans out and about, and they all have waste. And trying to manage that oil waste, that metal waste, that plastic waste is crucial. And then there we have another partner that we work closely with, ensuring that all of our waste is responsibly disposed of.
So, Mark, I want to thank you for taking the time to join us today and describing what's been a very impressive few years in sustainability journey for Carshire at your headquarters in Banbury and across the UK and Ireland. So thank you for sharing that with us, and thank you for sticking with the and persisting with the technical problems we've had this morning. Someday soon we'll be able to get Google and Microsoft to actually speak to each other. I think we've put men on the moon. I'm sure we can get different tech platforms to speak to each other, and we've managed it this morning. So it just shows the results of persistence and teamwork. So thank you very much for joining us this morning, Mark. I'm going to go back to a couple of the questions that we received. We'll have an opportunity to take any final questions, and then we'll wrap up in a couple of minutes. So, Joe, could you go to the next slide, please? So, Carsten, you very kindly gave us an overview of how difficult it is to decarbonise a building and where we should start. So, Paul, a question perhaps for you. So, why should I measure indoor environmental quality, and what's the point in supplementing the building management system, the BMS, with wireless controls? Perhaps you could give us a view on that.
Yeah, for sure. Sorry. Poignantly asked as I was taking a mouthful of coffee. My apologies. I mean, the benefits are the same ones I mentioned previously, John. If you're not looking after the people that are doing the work in the building that you're paying for to do the work in, then you're missing a big point, aren't you? They're our second biggest asset as a business. They're the ones that build the relationships with the customers and the clients and each other. So why wouldn't you want to give them the best environment to be in? Also, sick days, very poignant at the moment, I think, with current government, but, trying to reduce sick days, the cost of that to a business is probably greater than it's been said at the moment. And, last but not least, really, the energy. As Costin said, it's the one thing that we can't do without. You cannot not heat a building. Even in summer, you're using energy to cool it. So it's about how you can manage that efficiently with visibility, with clear visibility, that is easy to understand, and it gives you clear direction to act upon. And I think that's the challenge. It's not, a BMS, a building management system, will set temperatures, and they're very clever things, but it doesn't necessarily give you as much detail over a wider area to give you great data to make decisions with. And the other thing I would mention on BMS is the only people that manage BMS systems are the BMS companies. So who's checking that? And it just throws a little bit of insight back into the hands of the client to maybe question what's being done and why it's being done. Also, we might one day eradicate foot heaters, but that's probably just alienated half of the audience today. But yeah, there we go. So I think they go hand in glove, John, is my answer. They go hand in glove, and you should be trying to do both. And there is an ROI on both models.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Really, a question for you. So what sort of typical problems do we find when we review buildings, in the FM space and other areas? Are you able to give some sort of examples of the sort of areas that we find opportunity for saving or improvements?
Absolutely, and lucky for most of the audience, there's not that much time left because I can ramble on for hours. So I'll stick to one example. So we helped a large hospital with a procurement project on their security operations, and what they were doing was they were buying security services from the same company across 36 different contracts. Now, just by reevaluating that, and essentially buying all of the same services in exactly the same way, but under one umbrella, you remove 30 plus sets of overheads and profit. And that's a massive saving immediately and no difference in service. So that's before you even start to look at efficiencies within the service, etc., etc.
Okay, thank you very much, Rudy. I've got one final question, which I'll pick up and answer before we move on and close for today. So the question is, do I have to have all the packages together, and what sort of return on investment can I expect from our smart building packages? So the first point, in terms of the 3 packages that we outlined today, you can consume all of the packages together, or you can consume them individually to suit your specific needs. And typically, what return on investment can you expect to see from the smart buildings package? So we would ordinarily expect to see a 1 to 3% productivity improvement across an organization for implementing the outcome and measures from the workplace evaluation. We'd expect to see a 10% cost saving in the MOT area, and we'd expect to see circa 15% sort of energy saving in the energy and carbon space. So typically, we'd expect to see a client realise immediate savings of 2 to 3 times the cost of the smart buildings package by implementing the measures on an annualised basis. I can see there's a hand up and a question. So if you're able to drop your question into the chat, I can pick that up before we close out.
Martin, I've given you the ability to unmute yourself.
I said, Martin, if you have a question, if you can fire that at us, we'll answer it before we wrap up and close. Yeah, so Martin said, we find behavioural changes quite difficult. Do you have options with this? Yeah, absolutely, Martin. So if you're talking about behavioural change in terms of energy and carbon, so we've specifically are linked to the sort of sustainability journey. We've helped a number of clients in this regard, ranging from King's College London through to private sector organisations such as National Express. And what we've done is we've supported our clients to identify what they want to achieve in terms of the outcomes, and then think about how you can actually change behaviours. So if I just take a specific example of a higher education client, the University of Essex, we did a survey of the sort of senior staff, the students, and the mid-range staff, and identified what issues they felt passionate about, and then created a transformation campaign and training to train people and support them to actually drive the behavioural change. Typically, we've seen savings of 3 to 5% delivered in those areas. If you're interested in more information, you can email me after the webinar. We'll be dropping out a copy of the recording and our details, and I'd be happy to supply some further information, Martin. I can see Doug's got his hand up. Really, we'll take one last question before we wrap up, because I'm conscious we're starting to run over time.
Yeah, hi John and the team. Obviously, we're working closely with you guys at Sainsbury's Welcome Centre, but I would like to understand how you see the path for buildings like ours that are heavily reliant on gas equipment, such as gas-fired steam boilers and gas-fired LTHW boilers.
Yeah, that's a great question, Doug. So I think one of the big challenges with research and industry in particular is that at the moment it's quite reliant on gas for process loads or non-typical loads like steam process loads and the like. I think over time, in the short term, organizations are probably going to need to continue to operate with gas. But in the medium to longer term, we're going to need to switch from gas to other forms of electrical solutions. So typically, what's happening in heavy industry with gas-driven process loads are people are starting to innovate and create electrical solutions that allow the sort of decarbonisation of heat. So what I would expect to see in both the research environment and industry, where we've got large gas use for process loads, is that over time we transition to electricity, and that's going to be a transition of 10 to 15 years, allowing organisations like Sainsbury Welcome to decarbonise, Doug. So I'm just going to have to wrap up there, guys. Oh, sorry, Doug, did you want to?
No, just thanks for your reply.
Okay, thank you, Doug. I look forward to catching up with you soon. So next slide, please, Joe. So thank you very much for joining us today, and thank you for sticking with us as we struggled with the challenges between Google and Microsoft platforms. And a big thank you to Mark Venner for joining us and sharing the journey that CarShare have been on, the very impressive journey over the last couple of years. So LCMB, we're an organisation that's worked with a large number of private and public sector organisations. We're passionate about making buildings great places to work, ensuring that they consume the minimum amount of resource, and they work for organizations that people and customers, and we'd love to help you too. Next slide, please, Joe. So if you would like to get in contact, you can reach out to Rudy, Paul, Costin and myself through our website or through the office. The details are on the slide there. And we'll be following up today with a copy of the video and contact details. So thank you again for joining us, and particularly a big thank you to Mark Venner from CarShare. Thank you and goodbye.